Hi everyone, and welcome to the lecture video, Steps to a Successful Literature Review. In this lecture video, we're going to talk about the process of creating a literature review using a 6-step method. Now, steps 1 and 2 we've talked about before. You start with using search terms to explore online and library databases and identify primary sources as needed. We've already talked about that in previous lectures, so I'm not going to go over this again. But the next step is really useful, especially as a way to avoid issues of plagiarism. Step 3 is to create a document that provides you with a detailed summary of each of your sources that you plan to use in your lit review. The goal of this summary document is to allow you to put away the actual source itself and start writing your paper from your notes only. This is a great way to make sure you don't unconsciously start using words and phrases from the original source. The summary paper also makes it easier when you're writing to go back and find that one thing you need for a citation without having to reread the entire article. The format of the summary document is completely up to you, and it doesn't matter what program you use to put it in. I myself like to use a Word document. This is part of my article summary notes that I used for my dissertation during my PhD program. As you can imagine, I was trying to keep track of a lot of information for my dissertation, and the summary chart was a super helpful way to do that. My total document was 161 pages long, and it includes 61 sources. Now, I won't lie, this summary was extremely time intensive, but the great part of this document was it was a self-contained gold mine for my dissertation's lit review chapter. I never had to go back to my original sources, which was really helpful considering some of them were books that I'd already returned to the library. Notice that I have all the important information about the source for citation, although I actually was missing some of the things like page numbers and such that I had to go back for. If I had to do it again, putting a full APA format citation at the top of every section would have been a smart decision. The next step is to organize the previous research, meaning that you want to figure out which research goes together in terms of methods, topics, findings, etc. You can organize in multiple ways. For instance, you can physically move around your notes to group similar ideas together, or you can create an outline that references research from your summary table. One of the really good ways I have seen people do this is to write some of the basic findings from their lit review on post-it notes or index cards. They can then rearrange the notes around until they feel like they've created the best structure for their paper. The nice part of this is that you can use different colors to indicate different sources, different sections of the paper, etc., and it helps you keep track. Now, myself, I'm an outline person, so I like to write up an outline and list out some of the important topics that I want to cover in each section. I actually start writing on the same document as my outline, adding my text between my outline sections until eventually I'm ready to delete the outline altogether. But that's just how I like to do it. When you're organizing, keep in mind that the literature review should follow a funnel organization, starting with the broader research and then funneling down to your specific topic of interest. The literature review is an argument to the reader about why your research project is important, so this funnel helps them guide them through your argument. For example, here's a funnel diagram showing the topics that would be covered in a study about gender inequality on construction sites. The author starts with a broad discussion of gender inequality in the workplace, so that includes all different kinds of professions. Then he or she narrows it down to talking just about male-dominated workplaces before narrowing it further to talk specifically about construction industry jobs. Finally, the author gets to their specific topic, gender inequality on construction sites. In the last paragraph or two, the author will explain the rationale for the study, maybe arguing that there hasn't been research on gender inequality on construction sites, or arguing that what research has been done is lacking something methodologically that the author is trying to fix. Finally, it's time to get writing. One of the best ways I've seen to describe literature review paragraph construction is the MEAL approach to writing, which stands for main point, evidence, analysis, and linking. Main point opens up the paragraph. It explains what the paragraph will be focusing on. Evidence is then provided to support this point. Note that the evidence should be empirical data that's gathered from your primary sources, not your opinion statements. For example, a supportive evidence statement would be, Dr. Smith found that 91% of the prisoners did not commit a new offense after completing the job skills programming. An unhelpful evidence statement would be, Dr. Smith believes job skills programming helps prisoners. Make sure to cite your evidence using an in-text citation so that the reader knows what source you got that information from. Analysis means to put the evidence into your own words. Explain to the reader how that evidence supports the main point you're trying to make in this paragraph, and then make sure to link that discussion back to the research topic as a whole. Throughout your entire literature review, you want to be reminding the reader over and over about the goal of your research and making the argument that your research study is important for you to do and for them to read. Finally, now that you've gotten your first draft done, it's time to edit and edit and edit and edit. Editing is a process, and the best papers go through multiple edits. And the best of the best papers go through multiple edits over multiple days. Write a draft, then read through it to see what you like and don't like. Maybe there are sections you're not super fond of, but you can't think of a better way to say it right then. Go to sleep, mull it over, try reading it over the next day. Whether you consciously think about it or not, your brain is thinking about that paper, and you might figure out a great way to say that paragraph that you struggled with the day before if you just give your brain some time. When I was writing my dissertation, I would have these great ideas for sentences and arguments when I was getting ready for bed, so I would text them to myself so that I could review them the next day. One of the easiest and best strategies that I found to help you edit is to read your paper out loud. This is because when you read silently, your brain will automatically fill in places where you've left gaps. For instance, if you've left a word out, your brain will automatically fill in the word and you may not even notice the missing word. But reading it out loud forces you to focus on every single word individually, and your reading will alert you to missing words. Reading aloud will also help you catch awkward phrasing, repeated use of certain words, and organizational problems. Reading out loud is super important to my own editing process. I read all 100+ pages of my dissertation out loud. I just paced downstairs by myself, walking back and forth between all the rooms as I read every word in that dissertation. And for me, I always print out my paper and I mark it with a blue or red pen while I'm walking. For whatever reason, I tend to skip things over when I'm reading on the computer, maybe because I moved from reading to editing. And so I find that doing a full read with a paper copy and my pen in hand and then editing the entire paper at once on the computer works the best for me. So find out what works best for you. Now, one important note here, if you're going to give yourself time to edit properly, you need to finish the paper before the deadline. This means no last-minute papers. Even if you just finish the paper the day or two ahead of the due date, you will have a lot stronger paper than if you waited, because you'll have time to do one or both of the strategies discussed here. All right, well, that completes our discussion of the steps to a successful literature review. Thanks for watching, everyone.